everybody for joining us today. We are recording this session and it will be posted on the Nutrition Services website early next week. So if you need to refer to it or share it with any of your team members who are unable to join us today, it will be available for viewing later. Most of you have begun putting your email addresses in the chat box because we've trained you very well to do that if you're interested in receiving a certificate to count towards your professional development requirements in the NSLP. So thank you for doing that. And we'll get started. As you know today, we're here to discuss the transition to participating in the Summer Food Service Program. And I'm joined by a few team members today, including Sean Bondracek, one of the program specialists for the school meals and summer food service programs. And thanks for making sure you're muted. Again, a nice reminder, don't let yourself become unmuted because the rest of us can hear your conversations. Thank you. Okay, so let's get going talking about participation in the Summer Food Service Program because the USDA issued Child Nutrition Response number 56, allowing for participation in the SFSP even while your school is in session. So we'll briefly touch on some of the waivers that apply to the way you're serving meals now. Then we'll talk about how you are qualifying to operate the Summer Food Service Program and what type of site operation that needs. Then Sean will take over with meal pattern requirements and record keeping associated with the SFSP. And then we'll finish things off with a little bit of training on program costs and procurement, as well as the monitoring requirements for the program. And we will leave time to answer your questions at the conclusion of the training. You can go ahead and type the questions you think of as you think of them in the chat box, and we will try to cover as many of those as we can after we've made our way through the slide deck today. So as you know, waiver number 56 allows for the operation of the Summer Food Service Program, or what we call the SFSP, in lieu of the school lunch and school breakfast programs through the end of this year. So through December 31st, 2020, all meals served to students that are served using the SFSP are free to them and are claimed at the SFSP rates of reimbursement, and we will cover what those rates are for both breakfast and lunch here shortly. A quick rundown on the waivers that have been issued for the SFSP are seen here. We won't go over those in great detail today. Please remember to mute your microphone. Thank you. But I want to make you aware that all of those are available in a CNP waivers at a glance form, and I'll show you where to locate that on the website here in a couple of minutes. A couple of important waivers that support your participation in the SFSP that was issued by waiver number 56 are that sponsors and schools can participate in the SFSP without a submitted or approved application. And most of you have probably accessed the SFSP access form, which is your way of letting us know that you want to participate in the SFSP. We're working really quickly to process those access form submissions to grant your school SFSP access, especially, most importantly, for schools that haven't participated in the past and for schools that need to add sites to their application. So we are working quickly and diligently to do that. We'll make sure to email you when we know you have access to all the necessary pieces of the SFSP application, and we do appreciate your patience as we work through all of those requests. Bringing to your attention here, and because we're going to post this slide deck on the website along with the recording later, that all the hyperlinks in the slides today will obviously still exist for you when you access them from the website later if you need to use them. So up at the top, you see a hyperlink to CNP waivers at a glance, and that can be found on the main Nutrition Services webpage inside of the red box near the bottom of the picture I have on this slide. So make sure to access that for information and links to all of the program waivers that have been issued. And there in the top box called Summer Food Service Program Access Request, I have enclosed in a red box the link to the online SFSP access form. So if you haven't filled that out yet, and you want to transition to the summer food service program, you need to fill out that form for us. For those of you choosing to transition from the school meals to the summer food service program, and you want to do that back to the first day of school that you operated in August, you are allowed to do that. And so for those of you who joined us last week for a session of serving up great school meals, this is a change. We were made aware of the flexibility or option to allow for the retroactive use of the summer food service program. What we initially thought was going to be September 1st has actually turned out to be to backdate it to your first day of school if you choose to. So if you have already submitted and had your August NSLP claim processed, you'll need to follow the instructions I provided in an email yesterday, choosing option A to revise an already processed claim. Option B, to modify a claim that's in accepted status but has not yet been processed. And for those of you who have not yet submitted an NSLP claim and you want to use the SFSP to provide free meals to your students starting from the first day of school in August, then you don't need to do anything in the school lunch side of the system with your claim. You'll just wait until you receive approval of your online application for SFSP, and at that time, you'll be able to submit a claim for reimbursement through the SFSP. Remember, if you're going to utilize retroactive free meals through the SFSP for your students, you must credit those students' accounts for the meal charges they incurred. Remember not to credit them back any charges related to purchase of second entrees, second milks, or other a la carte items. I'm going to make a pause here in the presentation and remind you to mute your microphone. We're getting some feedback, and it's probably challenging for some to hear me. I still hear noise. Please check your microphone status in your Zoom window and make sure it is muted. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So here is really what you need to know about making the transition to the SFSP. Obviously, the summer program has different rules and regulations than the school meals programs do, and that's obviously why you're here with us today. We'll share more about those program requirements very soon. We want to make sure you know that meals are provided free of charge to children. Teachers and other non-food service staff must be charged for their meals, and you can continue to charge those adults at the meal price you indicated in your school lunch application, which for most of you is probably somewhere right around $3.85 per lunch. You can use the SFSP to provide both breakfast and lunch, or just one meal type. If you're a school that currently serves only lunch, you can continue doing only lunch. Transitioning to the SFSP does not require that you serve both breakfast and lunch through the program. For those of you that operate the after-school care snack program or the special milk program through the NSLP, I want you to know that we're still awaiting guidance from the USDA on how to handle that. And so we're not entirely sure how the USDA is going to let schools participate in both breakfast and lunch through the SFSP, and then also the after-school snack and or special milk programs through the NSLP. But as soon as we are aware of the guidance there, we will be sure to share it with you. All the resources and training documents that we'll cover today are available at the hyperlink on the slide here. You can navigate there from the home page by hovering over Summer Food Service Program on the left, and then choosing the training option that appears below it. Here you'll find a copy of the meal pattern chart, copies of the production record and meal count sheets, as well as access to some other important SFSP resources. We've taken a quick look at some of the waivers in place to allow you to transition to the summer food service program for meals. So now let's take a look at the two types of sites you can use to operate this program at your school. All sponsors must determine their site's eligibility in the following order. First, you look at your school or site's free or reduced meal eligibility, looking for a claim month through the NSLP in the previous school year. So in the 1920 year, you're going to check your school lunch site claims to determine if any of them document that that site had at least 50% free or reduced eligibility among the students enrolled in that school. Or you're going to look at the USDA's SFSP area eligibility map to determine if that school location is in an eligible area based on census data. If neither of those work to prove that you either meet the 50% free or reduced criteria and the site is also not in an eligible area utilizing the map, then we are allowing all sites to use Nebraska's statewide area eligibility waiver. And again, this waiver is used only if your site does not meet the eligibility criteria or methods mentioned above. Schools that must use this statewide area eligibility waiver do not need to submit any type of waiver request for this option. We also want to make sure you know that all open sites in the SFSP provide free meals to children ages 1 to 18. Now, this is a little bit different than a restricted open site, which you would choose to use if your school wants to serve only enrolled students due to service capacity limitations, where you're implementing things like social distancing and maybe have staffing or other capacity considerations you're taking into account that might prevent you from being able to serve all children in your community ages 1 to 18. So both open and restricted open need to follow the same kind of priority of free reduced eligibility. If that doesn't work or verify you, then utilizing the census map, and if that doesn't work to qualify you, then you would be applying the area eligibility waiver after that. And you must communicate through both of these site options the availability of free meals to all households of enrolled students. So you're going to share with them that free meals are available through the end of the year, that is December 31st. So you've made the decision to transition to the SFSP and you've completed that access form available on the Nutrition Services webpage. After we are able to grant you access to all of the things you need inside of the CNP system, the red Summer Food Service Program block at the bottom left of the picture here will appear for you. And then that's where you will follow some application guidance we've provided to you and complete the online application for approval. So you can utilize the updated SFSP application guide that I sent in an email. You probably received it a couple of times in emails from me, but it gives some nice step-by-step guidance with pictures. But if you encounter any issues or errors in the application that you aren't able to get rid of, don't hesitate to contact a member of our team for assistance. I'm going to hand it over to Sean now, and she's going to share some important information about the meal pattern requirements and record keeping for the program.
Thank you, Katie. Well, let's talk about what meal pattern options are available when you participate in the Summer Food Service Program. Schools, sponsors can utilize the meal pattern for the school breakfast and lunch program. So many of our schools now are going to be transitioning over to the Summer Food Service Program. But within the Summer Food Service Program, you are allowed to use the same meal pattern that you have used in the school meals program. So that could be the same breakfast and lunch meal pattern. The other option is to utilize the Summer Food Service Program meal pattern, and they are two separate meal patterns. So that decision has to be made. Sponsors must indicate on the site applications which meal pattern they are choosing to utilize, and must choose one meal pattern to use for all students. So no matter if your students are learning remotely or if they are in-person learners, you have to choose the same meal pattern for all students that you are serving. So that's an important point of clarification. So I can't use the summer food service meal pattern to serve my remote learners, and I can't use then a different meal pattern such as the school lunch meal pattern to serve my on-site learners. It has to be the same meal pattern. Next slide. So we are going to spend just a little bit of time on the summer food service meal pattern chart. And you can find the chart on the summer food service program site, the link on our nutrition services website. It would be listed under training, and the chart is available for you to review and print. And we will be going through that chart. It looks like what's on the screen. As you can see, we have food components listed over on the left-hand side of the page, and we have our meals that would be served, breakfast and lunch, listed in the center of the page. And we have what the required portion sizes are for each of the food components listed. And want to remind our sponsors that you must plan, serve, and document that all meals meet the meal pattern requirements if you're utilizing the school meals pattern or the summer food service meal pattern. Whatever meal pattern you are choosing to implement, you have to ensure that those meals meet that meal pattern. Next slide. Let's look at breakfast under the summer food service meal pattern. You must serve 3 components, and those components are milk, fruit, vegetable, and a grain bread serving. So we have our 3 components, and we have our required minimum portion sizes. So milk, it's 1 cup. For the fruit vegetable, it's a 1/2 cup. And for the grains breads, it's 1 serving. You serve the same serving size for all ages under the summer food service program. That meal pattern is designed for children through 12th grade, but it's 1 serving size. So as we look a little bit further on the next slide, we can look at lunch. You must serve all 4 components, and as we review the 4 components, they are milk. You have to serve 2 different fruits and or vegetables to equal a combination of 3/4 cup. So you can serve 2 fruit, 2 vegetable, 1 fruit, one vegetable. It just has to be a combination to equal 3/4 cup of 2 different items. So for example, I couldn't serve apples and applesauce. So 2 different items under the fruit vegetable. The next component is the meat alternate. It's the grain bread on your chart, and that is 1 serving of grain bread. And then the last component is the meat alternate. And as we look at the chart, we can see that it's equivalent to 2 ounces of meat alternate. I want to talk about combination foods. Combination foods would be like your recipes that you prepare. It could be your processed items that you purchase, but you must know how these items contribute to meeting meal pattern requirements. So that may be looking at your recipes and determining how they contribute, how much meat alternates they contribute, how many grain breads they contribute. If it's your processed items, then you would want to have a child nutrition label for that item. We've included an example of what a child nutrition label looks like. You would need to have this information to know that you are meeting meal pattern requirements. Now, commercially prepared combination foods may not have a CN label, but you must request a product specification form or formulation statement that indicates how that item meets meal pattern. It's not enough just to assume. You have to have the documentation on hand to demonstrate that meal pattern requirements have been met. Next slide. Let's talk about offer versus serve using the summer food service meal pattern. I want to point out that if you are going to be using the summer food service meal pattern, offer versus serve has different requirements in summer than it does in the school meals program. And information, detailed information about offer versus serve can be found in the nutrition guide. It's a USDA guidance manual that talks about meal service and meal planning in the summer food service program. And we've included a link on the slide, and you should review that information. But we're going to take a little bit closer look into offer versus serve, just to clear up any misunderstandings. Breakfast offer versus serve in the summer food service program. You must offer at least 3 items or 3 components, okay? So you have to meet the minimum meal pattern, which is the fruit or vegetable plus 1 grain serving plus milk. To implement offer versus serve in summer, you have to add an additional serving of fruit, vegetable, bread or bread alternate, or a serving of meat alternate. So it is a 4-item meal. All food items must be different from each other. So if I am serving flake cereal and puff cereal, they're the same food item. They're both cereal. So a student can't take 2 of those to count as 2 items in the summer food service meal pattern. As I said, apple slices and apple juice are the same food item. They're both apples, and so only 1 would credit as a serving. So if you are combining fruits and vegetables or 2 fruits, they need to be different fruits, different vegetables, or a combination of the fruit vegetable. For the reimbursable meal, the child must take at least 3 different food items from the items offered. So we're offering 4 items. The student has to take 3 different food items for a reimbursable meal. So let's look at some examples of offer versus serve at breakfast. Our menu is a muffin, assorted cold cereals, mandarin oranges, and milk. The child must choose, or can choose. They can choose the muffin or any of the cereal options because that would count as 1 grain. They can select the mandarin oranges, my 2nd item, and milk. That would be my 3 items. The 2-ounce muffin counts as 1 of the 3 required meal items. So that's a little bit different than in the school lunch meal pattern with offer versus serve, where we could give that muffin potentially credit for counting as 2 grains. So this is important to realize. Offer versus serve is different in the summer food service meal pattern. If we look at lunch, the menu planner must offer at least 5 items from 4 component groups, from the 4 food component groups. These items or component groups include 1 serving of meat alternate, the 2-ounce equivalent, 2 different servings of fruit and or vegetable, 2 different food items, 1 serving of bread alternate, and 1 serving of fluid milk. So I have my 5 items from my 4 components, 4 food component groups. All the food items must be different from each other. The child must take at least 3 food components, not just 3 items. So as we look at an example of ODS at lunch, our menu is a cheeseburger on a bun, green beans, applesauce, milk, and an oatmeal cookie. The child must choose 3 components. So possible options might include they're taking the cheeseburger on the bun plus green beans. So I have my meat alternate, I have my grain, and I have my vegetable. So I have my 3 different components. The child takes applesauce plus milk plus the oatmeal cookie. I have my 3 different food components. My oatmeal cookie is large enough to count as 1 grain serving. When we talked about what the portion sizes were, those were minimum portion sizes where I said that you only needed to have 1 serving of grain. I can serve more in the summer food service program. And I saw a message come up in the chat real quickly. We can serve desserts in the summer food service program, and yes, you can. So the example I'm using of the oatmeal cookie is an example of a dessert that is being served in this program and how it would count. Moving on, let's talk about documentation, production records. Production records serve as your documentation that all required food components of the meal were served and provided in the minimum required serving sizes. Production records are required and they must be completed daily. You must have a production record for every meal claimed for reimbursement. You have the option of continuing to utilize the school meals, the breakfast and lunch production records, or the option of completing the summer food service production records. If you're familiar with completing the school meals production records, I would encourage you to continue to utilize that production record because you are familiar and you know how to record. The summer food service production record is certainly another option available, but it would be a little bit different than what you're used to recording. Katie, I'm going to let you take over on counting meals.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sean. Counting meals in the SFSP is a little bit simpler than it is in the school lunch program because we're not counting the number of meals that are served to free eligible students and reduced eligible students and paid eligible students. Each month you would report just a grand total of the number of meals served to children, but you can continue using your point of service counting system for meal counting. Again, you're just reporting a total number of meals served and not needing to separate them by eligibility status. We do encourage you though to leave the free, reduced, and paid eligibility designations for each of your enrolled students in your POS system. You'll need that information for claiming meals when we resume the school meals program in January. But for now, we've encouraged schools to change the meal price in their POS system to $0. Therefore, those student accounts aren't going to be charged anything for the free meals they will be receiving through the SFSP. I want you to remember that students do have to pay for second entrees, extra milks, and any other a la carte items. Those cannot be claimed for reimbursement. And another reminder that neither can adult meals. So the only meals included in your online claim for reimbursement are those full meals that are served to students and children. For those of you who might have some virtual learners or you're offering in some way grab-and-go meals, possibly for more than one day at a time, which is allowed in the SFSP. We want to bring to your attention the use of a paper counting form, which is allowed. This form has been modified a little bit to be useful to those sites or schools using a distribution method for meals of more than one day at a time. Excuse me. We want to bring to your attention also that if you choose to use this form, there are a couple of ways that you cannot use it. You see the green box in the top row of numbers where each number is marked off one by one. That indicates that this form was completed as a person watched a student receive a meal, and that number was marked off as the student received the meal. It's not acceptable to draw a line through any numbers on the form. We really want to emphasize with you that if you choose to use this form, it's okay, but you absolutely have to mark each meal served off one by one. When it comes to counting meals, we also want to make you aware that there are a couple of ways that it is not okay to count those meals. You can't submit a claim for meals based on your morning preparation counts. You can't submit a claim based on your anticipated meal counts. You cannot complete meal counting before the meal is served. And obviously you couldn't count in your head. You have to have some sort of written or electronic documentation to ensure the claim you submit for reimbursement is accurate. You have to count and record those meals as they're served to each child, and after you've ensured that they have taken or received a reimbursable meal with all required components. And if you're utilizing that SFSP meal count form we saw one slide back, you've got to make sure that all meals served are tallied. And if there aren't enough tallies or numbers on one form, we encourage you to use a second form and staple those together. So we've taken a look at a lot of important information, but one of the biggest pieces is the financial component of the program. So we want to discuss that briefly with you now, but want to get started first with a reminder that claims for both the school lunch and the summer food service program must be submitted individually for each site for each month that meals are served. Claims must be submitted and in accepted status in the CNP system no later than 60 days after the last day of the month that the meals were served. So you see on the right here a handy table that we have available on our website. So meals served in August have to be submitted for, the claim for those meals rather, has to be submitted by October 30th. Those claims for reimbursement are allowed only for the meal types that are reflected in your SFSP site application. So make sure that that site application is an accurate reflection of your meal service. And then you just consolidate each monthly meal count by meal type for each site. Again, you're not claiming a group of free meals and reduced eligible meals and paid eligible meals. It's one grand total or lump sum. This is what the screen in the claims side of the summer food service program looks like. In this, you will report the total number of meals served for each approved meal type. You'll also submit or report the total days that meals were served in the claim month. And you'll also report the average daily attendance. And on the next slide, I'll show you how to accurately calculate that. If your school is choosing to begin operating the SFSP in the middle of September, meaning you are not retroactively applying free meals to your students through the SFSP, which is okay, you do not have to go back in time. You would submit both an NSLP claim for the meals served in that program in the early part of the month, as well as an SFSP claim for meals served in the latter part of the month of September. So I wanted to make you aware of that. If you've chosen to not retroactively use the SFSP for free meals in September, you will have to submit two different claims. One in the NSLP side, where you'll claim meals based on free, reduced, and paid for the first part of the month, and then a second claim in the SFSP side, where all meals will be lumped together, so a grand total of breakfasts and then a grand total of lunches for the latter half of the month of September. Calculating average daily attendance is not difficult, but some people do hit a little bump in the road when they get an error message pertaining to their reported value of the average daily attendance. It's simply excuse me, the result of the total number of meals you served divided by the number of days you operated. And you see the example here shows that if I served 1,256 meals on 22 different days, that value is 57.09. Well, I can't have 0.09 of a student. If there is any decimal value at all in the, that number, I'm going to round it up to the next whole number, and that's what I'm going to report in the average daily attendance of the claim. I want you to remember that processed, accepted, and pending are very important claim statuses to pay attention to. If your claim status is processed, that meant that there were no errors in the claim and it has been processed for payment. An accepted claim also means there are no errors in the claim. The system has accepted it and we're just waiting for the payment processing to occur. And once that has happened, you'll see a date fill in under the date processed column. A pending claim means that there is some step in the claim acceptance process that remains. So you'll want to go access that claim again because your claim won't be paid until it is in accepted status. And once those claims have been accepted by the system, the authorized representative will receive an email confirmation notifying them that the claim has been accepted, and then it will be processed and paid. Cover briefly some allowable costs, and for all of you here today, this is likely a review. The allowable costs and regulations surrounding tracking costs and all of that is the same in the summer food service program as it is in the school meals program. So you can use your reimbursement to cover the cost or pay for the cost of the food you use to serve to students. For any non-food supplies needed for your meal service, space, things like that. You are allowed to use reimbursement to pay for a meal for someone, a staff member, directly involved in preparing or serving the meal. So your food service staff would be able to receive a meal through the program, not have to pay for it, but would not be a meal that you include in the claim for reimbursement. The claim for reimbursement only includes meals served to students. We know that everyone must use program funds to pay for meals and staffing, and some of you may have reimbursement left over at the conclusion of your operation of the SFSP at the end of December. Whatever excess funds you have there can be transitioned into your school lunch account and utilized for program operation there. NDE does complete reviews of all sponsors operating the program, and we want to make you aware of some meal disallowances that could be assessed for not following the requirements of the program. Any meals that don't meet meal pattern, either because they're missing a component or don't provide the minimum required quantity, would be disallowed. Meals that are not correctly counted and claimed would also be disallowed. And then serving meals at any unapproved sites, meaning you're serving meals at a location in which you don't have an approved site application, would also result in meal disallowances. Reimbursement is calculated as a sum of the operating cost plus one of the two identified administrative cost values or reimbursement values, of course, based on the meal or snack type. So it's your total reimbursement per meal is based on, your total reimbursement for the month is based on the number of meals you serve in that month multiplied by the sum of the operating cost value. For lunch is $3.76 plus the administrative cost value based on whether your location is rural or self-prep or some other type. So most of you are going to receive $4.15 per lunch and $2.37 per breakfast. Let's take a quick look at some of the monitoring requirements of the program. The site application asks you to identify a site supervisor, and this person is responsible for monitoring that all of the program requirements are being followed. So this person is responsible for maintaining the daily records, like the meal count sheets or the POS system, as well as documenting that all the required components were served in the minimum required quantities on those daily production records. All sponsors or schools must complete an annual site review, and this is required for all sites. It must be done within the first 4 weeks of operation of the program, and I know that for those of you who are retroactively applying the SFSP to your meal service back to your first day of school in August, we've already passed that first 4-week time frame. So we encourage you to complete this review as quickly as you can. The on-site portion of the visit is waived, however, in light of the coronavirus. And we encourage you to do a desk review of records to make sure that your meal pattern is meeting all of its requirements, to make sure that your counting process and procedure is in a good place. It's going to help you identify and correct issues, and that's going to prevent you from possibly having an overclaim or a repayment that needs to be collected. Here is a picture of the site review form, which will soon be available on our website. So a couple things you might do as a desk review, again, is review each of those sites' daily meal counts and the production records, check them for completeness, and make sure there aren't any records missing. I want to remind you that the Justice for All poster must be displayed at each site in a location that is visible to all children and adults. If you're serving meals in individual classrooms, we would not require that this be posted in each classroom. You could post it in a common area that everyone probably would see at some point throughout the day. I want to remind you that the civil rights training requirement is the same in the SFSP as it is in the school meals program. The USDA requires that all staff involved in a child nutrition program must be trained on the civil rights requirements each year. And you can find a link to the training resources available to complete on your own or with your staff at the link on the page here. We also want to remind you that on all program materials, it is required that you provide the short non-discrimination statement, and you can see that at the bottom of the slide. I think we've come to the conclusion almost here today, and we want to remind you that our group is working remotely. Feel free to contact any of the NSLP or SFSP specialists by phone or email, and I provided the link to our contact page on our website and provided you with a list of the specialists who work in both the NSLP and the Summer Food Service Program. And we're here to help you at any time, so please never hesitate to contact us by phone or email. And that's, I think, a pretty good overview of, at least what I hope you think is a good overview of the program requirements. And we can start to answer your questions in the chat box now.
Katie, I've been managing that.
Bless you.
And I will start.
Yeah.
I will start with some of the questions that have appeared. Rowan asks, what is the status of verification this year? And Rowan, I wish we could tell you that we knew, but we have not heard from USDA if schools are required to complete verification this year or if it's put off for a while. Right now, we are just waiting to hear back from USDA. The question has been posed. Moving down on the chat box, is milk considered a la carte? There is only reimbursement for the complete meal that the student selects. So if a student only wants milk, then that would be considered an a la carte purchase and they would be charged for that milk. In order for them to have free milk, then they must take the entire meal to receive the milk and for the school to receive the reimbursement. There was a comment that not through the end of the school year, and unfortunately the funding is limited and waiver 56 is extended through December 31st, 2020 or until funds are exhausted, whichever, well, it ends December 31st. There is the possibility it could end earlier. And schools would be notified way ahead of time, hopefully, that that would happen. But I think it's pretty, don't know. That's how waiver 56 was worded, that through December 31st. ESU 3 participates in the school nutrition program. Do any of the waivers apply to our program? I see one of the waivers mentions SNP concerning the site visit the first week. The waiver 56, is for all schools, private, educational service units, public schools. It applies to all schools and institutions providing meal service to students. Katie, I'll let you take this one. This one says, how do you modify an August claim that says pending?
Yeah, great question. If it's pending, it's not an accepted status. You, I think, could go in and modify it to zero out all of the values, but because it's pending, it's not going to be accepted and then processed for payment. Usually, I believe that means you didn't go through all the steps to certify and then submit the claim for payment if it's still in pending process. So really nothing's going to happen with it, but we would advise you to go in to modify it and zero out all the values.
Great, thank you, Katie. The next question is, if we did not utilize the retroactive date and did not start until September 15th, do we still submit our August claim and September 1 through 14 in the school meals program? The answer is yes. That's exactly what you would do. That you would submit your August claim, and for the meals served from September 1 through 14, those were under the school meals program, and you started or implemented the summer food service program effective September 15th. As I look on down, the question is afternoon milk covered under the summer food service program? And no, the answer is no. That if you are participating in the special meals program or the summer food service program and you're serving special milk, we are waiting from USDA to provide guidance about the special milk program and the after school care snack program. We have not received that guidance yet, but there is no reimbursement under the summer food service program for afternoon milk. I'm arrowing down.
Yeah, I'm looking too, Sean. Let's see.
The question is, can we change between the summer food service program and the school meals program, the National School Lunch meal pattern if school changes from in-person to virtual? And the answer would be you would revise your application to reflect the meal pattern that you are implementing at the time that you would make that decision. Your application always has to reflect what your current meal pattern is. And so a school can make that switch. But remember, as I said when we were reviewing meal pattern, you can't offer, the example I used was you can't offer like the school meals pattern for in-session learners and a different meal pattern such as the summer food service meal pattern for remote learners. It's the same meal pattern at each site for all students. The next question is kind of similar. Can we use different meal patterns at different sites? And the answer to that is yes. So for example, maybe one site, I'm trying to think of an example, maybe your elementary, you want to implement the National School Lunch program, but then at the high school, you're going to implement the summer food service meal pattern. because it's based on the site where you indicate what meal pattern you're following, you can do that. But there is quite a difference in meal patterns, and if you are serving children in the same household, there might be a little bit of, I don't know, concern from households that students are receiving different portion sizes. Are the slides available to print? Katie, I'll let you address that.
We'll post the slides we used today along with the recording of today's session. Like I said, hopefully it can be posted early next week. But I guess in the meantime, I could send them to everybody so you can use them that way. So I'll make sure I do that tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Katie. Do all students have to take the meal, or can they choose to just purchase a la carte? A student can choose to turn down the meal. There is no requirement that each student be served a meal. The student actually has to want the meal. If they would prefer to purchase a la carte, that would be the school's decision to allow just the purchase of a la carte. They would be charged for the a la carte purchase. The summer food service program access form has been completed, but I haven't seen an email from nutrition services stating they have reviewed the info, so I haven't updated the application. Thanks for your patience, Sherry. We have been pretty overwhelmed in our office with the number of sponsors, schools that have contacted us wanting to implement the summer food service program. We are working through our list, and we will be in contact with all of the schools that have expressed interest in operating the summer food service program. If you have not completed the access form on the website, you have to let us know that you are interested in participating in the summer food service program. So please complete that simple survey.
I see a question about completing the SFSP access form from Patty. Do you still need to email Jenna Hilligoss? That would only be necessary if you've never participated in the program before, because the person identified as the administrator in the CNP system wouldn't have access to the SFSP application and claims. But if you have participated in the SFSP before and have accessed the online application, then you do not need to also email Jenna Hilligoss. It's only if you're brand new to the program.
So Elaine asks, so a 2-count Pop-Tart will not count for the summer food service program? No, that's not correct. A 2-count Pop-Tart counts as 1 grain in the summer food service program. And so if you are planning for the three components, remember what I said, it is the 1 cup of milk, 1 grain, and then the ½ a cup of fruit requirement. If you're implementing offer versus serve, then you have to add an additional item. But if you are counting that extra Pop-Tart as the other Pop-Tart in the container, the 2, then it would not count as an extra grain. It would need to be a different grain that is being offered for offer versus serve requirements. I think we've addressed Patty's question about the time frame to receive access. Remember that you can participate in the summer food service program without a submitted or approved application. So you can certainly notify your households and begin participation in the program without a submitted application or approved application.
I think the next one is about waivers that apply to the two programs. Is that where we are, Sean?
That is where we're at.
Okay. You want to take that, or do you want me to?
I can read it. Can you talk about the waivers as they apply to the summer food service program and the national lunch program seamless summer options? Do these waivers apply to the school nutrition program, except the waiver for the first week site visit?
Well, we have the non-congregate waiver, meal service times waiver, parent pickup waiver, all in place for both programs. So I guess the answer to that question is yes. Do you agree, Sean?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The big difference is that under the applying those with the school meals program is that you are claiming students by category, paid, free, and reduced. If you are implementing the summer food service program, then those meals provided to students are free of charge to the students, and they are claimed at the summer food service rate. So the question from Jamie is, do they have to take milk? Milk is one of the required components. If you're implementing offer versus serve, there is not the requirement that they have to take milk. It has to be offered just like it does in the school meals program, but with offer versus serve, it's up to the student to decide which of the components they are going to take for the reimbursable meal.
Next question is about submitting the August lunch claim. Yeah, based on the guidance we provided the last time we met. At that time, we didn't know that the USDA would allow the summer program to be applied back to the first day of school in August. So yes, you can go back, redo your school lunch claim, and zero out those values if that claim has been processed. You'll submit a revision, and I sent some instructions on how to do that yesterday. That email contains options like A and B based on the status of your claim, whether it's been processed or just accepted. The steps are just a little bit different. And send letters to parents to let them know they'll not be charged for lunches through December. Yes, you can notify parents and families that you're participating in the SFSP, and that means that their student will receive meals free of charge.
Then from Sherry, we have a question about, we currently have 2 buildings that qualify for CEP meals and 2 that do not. Can we use the summer food service program for just the 2 buildings that do not qualify for CEP? Sherry, yes, you can. You can do that. Or you can have all 4 of the buildings participate in the summer food service program. That would certainly be another option that would be available.
I need to clarify my last answer. Thank you, Erica. I don't know what came out of my mouth. Did I say the rest of the year? I meant to say you can share with parents that the free meals will be provided through the end of December or until the funds are exhausted. Sorry about that. That's an important thing to clarify.
Jamie asks, if we are running the summer food service program, do we have to use the adult price that we use for the summer food service program, or can we use the regular adult price? You can use the regular adult price that you have been charging under the school meals program. So if that is a decision that the sponsor can make. So you can utilize the same adult price that you have been utilizing.
The next question is from Jane. She wants to know if they can use the meal count form that's got the numbers and you tally the numbers or mark the numbers off one by one for breakfast and then use their regular POS system for lunch. And yes, that is okay to do.
Okay, Sherry says, Infinite Campus told me not to change the price to a 0 for the students, that I'm to create new purchasable items, example, K-8 lunch, summer food service, 9 through 12 lunch, summer food service program. That would be a conversation definitely you would want to have with your software company, which would be the easiest way to implement this. And so, Sherry, thank you for letting us know what Infinite Campus has advised you. I would encourage every sponsor to talk with their software company what is the best way to implement this program and still utilize their point of service software.
John, I think you answered the question about parents wishing to opt out earlier.
I don't know if I answered it in this Zoom, but that question has come in. The question is from Bambi, and she has a parent that has asked to opt out of the program, meaning that they wish to pay for their meals. How does this work? And then are we not able to claim them at all? If the child is not taking the free meal and is choosing to purchase a la carte, then the meal cannot be claimed for reimbursement. The student would be charged a la carte for the items that they select.
The next one is about verification, right, Sean?
Sure.
Kathy asked, do family verification as normal in October, November? And I think the answer right now that we know is that National Office understands that this is a common question and they're working on guidance to address it. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
Do you mean lunchroom reviews as in visits from the health department? The question is, will we have lunchroom reviews? Or does that mean ARs?
I think Kathy is asking if we're going to have administrative reviews this year.
Okay.
And we are not having administrative reviews. Those are being delayed till next year. But with participation in the summer food service program, you will be having a summer food service program review if you are a new sponsor. That's a requirement of this program.
I think Karen's asking if they're going to if you'll receive another review from us or a review by us if you just had one in the summertime. And so the answer to that is going to be no. You already have been reviewed in the current program year, so we would not review you again. Someone also asked that they are stated they completed their on-site visit the second week of school. Well, we need to do it again if we go to SFSP. And I think that's a good question. Sean, what do you think?
Well, now you're participating in a different program. At first, I would say, well, you've already done that, but you reviewed your school meals program. You did your on-site visit for your school meals program. You will need to do the review that is required under the summer food service program. We are talking two different programs.
Jane asks where she can find the papers for today. I think that she probably means the forms we referenced. And you can navigate to get those from the Nutrition Services homepage. If you hover over Summer Food Service Program on the left, you'll see a list of items appear under it. Forms and resources and training would be the ones you want to access.
correct. And Sharon asks, if we select the NSLP meal pattern, we continue to use the offer versus serve requirements of that program and the production records, and that is correct. That if you are continuing to utilize the school lunch, school breakfast meal pattern, then the offer versus serve requirements are in place for that program, and also you would utilize the same production records that you're currently using through the school lunch program and breakfast program. Oh, Carl asks, are we able to start providing meals before we are approved by application? And the answer to that is yes. You can certainly start the summer food service program. Once again, USDA said from the beginning of the school year, anytime from the beginning of the school year onward through December 31st, you can operate the summer food service program. But you will eventually need an approved application. And once again, make sure you have put your intent to participate on the access form available on the summer food service, under the summer food service program on the Nutrition Services website.
We still have that outstanding question about special milk, and we'll provide guidance issued by the USDA as soon as we receive it. We know that's something many people need to have an answer to. We have a question from Mr. Cody. If they already serve free meals under a different program, I presume it's CEP. Should we sign up for this option? And my answer to schools on that one is it's certainly something to consider. The reimbursement rates for the summer food service program is higher than it is for the free rate through the school meals program. And if it would be a relief of some burden on your meal service staff to be able to follow the summer food service program meal pattern as opposed to the school lunch meal pattern, for those two reasons, I guess it's something you can consider doing. You don't have to, obviously, but a little bit more money and things a little bit simplified might be something that is of value to you right now.
Stacy asked, last week it was stated that if we are going to switch to the summer food service program, we need to go into our NSLP application and update the end dates. What do we need to change them to? Well, you would need to change your end date to the last date that you operated under the NSLP program. So you would change for breakfast and lunch, the last day that you operated in those programs, and then on your summer food service application, you would put the beginning date, which would be when you implemented the program. So you have to put end dates for one program, and then on the summer food service application, the start date, and then the end date would be December 31st, 2020.
Dawn?
Sure. Yeah.
This is Donna. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Donna. Gosh, sorry.
I was wondering if you could explain the dates if the school goes back to the beginning of the school year and claims through the summer program. Then would they put January 1st as the beginning date of their school meals program, the NSLP?
They would put the date that they return to school from their break. And so if that is January 8th, they would put their first date back that they are serving meals after their break.
Sharon Schaefer asked, when we say all students, that would include preschool, the in-building learners, and remote learners as well. And yes, that is correct.
Linda, asks, if milk is picked up after we give them their meal tray, but before the POS, point of service, is the student required to take milk even if he or she is not going to drink it in the summer food service program? If you are not implementing offer versus serve, then yes, they would be required to take the milk, as they would be required to take all of the required food components. If you are implementing offer versus serve, remember they have the option of turning down 2 components, and milk could be one of those.
Similar question, I think, below there about taking a fruit or vegetable. You know, it depends on whether or not you're operating offer versus serve.
Do the students still need to take a fruit or vegetable under the school meals meal pattern, lunch and breakfast? Students are required to take at a minimum a half a cup of fruit and or vegetable. In the summer food service meal pattern, offer versus serve, there is not that requirement of requiring students to take the fruit and or vegetable, but they do have to take the required number of components under offer versus serve. That is a difference between the 2 programs.
Elaine asked a question about the budget detail in the summer food service application. And if you have 2 sites, do you figure the budget for each site, or for, I think, 1 application altogether, which would include both sites, and it's for your entire application and all of the sites represented in it? It's calculating for you your reimbursement value based on all of the meal service information you put into each site's application. So it's representative of your entire SFSP operation.
Katie asked a question about Power Lunch, and unfortunately, I am not real familiar with all the different software companies. That question should probably be asked of your school's power school specialist. You want to ensure that your point of service is accurately tracking number of meals, and then accurately tracking a la carte purchases. So I would refer you back to your specialist at your school.
Next couple of questions are, if you use a start date of September 1st, you submit your claim through the SFSP, and that is correct. So that's a really good, important point to emphasize right now. When you submit your claim, make sure you're submitting it in the right program. Okay, so for September and August, where we've learned more information and are working on making this transition, it's going to be especially important to pay attention to make sure you're submitting the claim for reimbursement in the correct program. And it is true that this movement or transition to the summer food service program is optional. It is not required that you opt in to be able to provide free meals to all of your students. Kathy asked a question about ethnicity data based on geographic area and participation area. And in order to avoid a very long explanation, I would just refer you to the SFSP application guide, which I've sent in a couple of emails over the last several days. So if you're unable to locate that guide, why don't you send me an email? I'll put my email address in the chat box here. I can send it to you and direct you to the appropriate portions on the page, and give you a link to the quick facts where we get that information from, and you plug it into your site application. And if you're still having issues, obviously we can certainly help you, but it's just kind of a detailed sort of thing that would be a little bit challenging to explain very clearly right now. That's a great question though. Thank you for asking it.
Okay, I'll take the next one, Katie.
Thank
Sherry says, I update the application for September. So Sherry, their school must have operated previously, so it's updating the summer food service application information to the end date of September 30th. And then she goes on to say, then wait until October to update the application, correct? Actually, the program year for the summer food service program is October through September. And so we are only putting end dates till September 30th on this application, and a new application will be required for October through December. And so you will go through the process again. Fortunately, much of the information rolls over from the previous application to the application you will be completing in October, but there is that second step that will need to happen fairly soon. You will complete an application for this program year through September 30th and a new summer food service application effective for October through December 31st.
Question about, oh, go ahead.
Can we switch from summer meals to our regular school lunch program after December 30th? This is the waiver 56 that allows for schools to operate the summer food service program is only extended through December 31st at this point. And so schools will be going back to their school meals program in January. The question from Kathy on the summer food service program budget detail is the projected operating costs for the year or just the months that we are participating in the program. It is only for the months you are participating in the program. As I go online, I do not see the access to the summer food service program. It only shows the SNP. What do I need to get access to the application? If you have indicated your information on the access form, completed that access form on the summer food service link, then you are on a list and we will be granting rights to our new sponsors to have access to the summer food service program application.
For the person who joined late, we learned late last week that schools can operate or retroactively participate in the summer program back to their first day of school in August, which is different than what you heard last week when we thought it was the 1st of September. I'm not sure where we are, Sean.
I'll take Carrie's question. Can we serve offer versus serve at one site and not offer versus serve at another site? Yes, you can do that, Carrie. It's by individual feeding site. And for the start and end dates, as well as preoperative site visit for our site, I will need someone to advise. Yes, we will help you, Annie and Kate. And Mary Jo asked, do we need to keep track of the individual students taking lunch each day, or can we just count each meal at the point of service? Would a hand tally counter work? We have to complete the summer food service program tally sheet that Katie talked about in training. You do not need to keep track of individual students, but it is counting each meal at the point of service. And the count sheet that is used for the summer food service program that Katie reviewed is available on the summer food service link. The question, Katie, is do we have to document which waivers we're using on the application process, or will the application process take care of that?
We will ask you, I presume in a survey format, to let us know which waivers you're choosing to utilize. You probably remember filling out a survey asking you similar questions last spring. And so we'll probably use that same process for the fall.
Katie, this is another good question. If we participated back in the summer food service, or back in March, May, in the summer food service program, and did I assume they're talking about an on-site review, then do we need to do another review for August, September?
I think the answer to that is going to be no. We're in the same operating year of the program. So if you completed that review of your records in the spring or early summer, you won't need to do one again in September. And I hope that the USDA will provide additional guidance for those schools choosing to operate the program in the immediate, in October, November, and December. It's not necessarily the same program year, but we'll make sure we send that question to our regional office contact to seek guidance on that, and we'll let you know what we learn.
Okay, we have some confusion about milk in offer versus serve. I am confused about the milk answer. So if a child doesn't take milk, then what other choice do they have to take to make a reimbursable meal? Well, we can review what those food components are. And remember, there were 5 items, and those 5 items were meat. Thank you, Katie. Back to the slide.
Lunch?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We must offer at least 5 items from 4 food component groups. 1 serving of meat alternate, equivalent to 2 ounces. 2 different servings of fruit and or vegetable, so 2 different. 1 serving of bread or a bread alternate, and 1 serving of fluid milk. All the food items must be different from each other, and the child must take at least 3 food components, not just 3 items. So the child could take the serving of meat alternate.
Oh, sorry, do you want me to go back?
No, you're fine. You can go back. That would be helpful. Or no, go forward. That's great. We can look at this example. So let's look at this menu. Cheeseburger on a bun, green beans, applesauce, milk, oatmeal cookie. The child takes the cheeseburger on the bun and green beans. We're counting the meat alternate, we're counting the grain, and we're counting the green beans. I have my 3 out of 5. So that child doesn't have to take milk. In the next example, the child takes applesauce, milk, and an oatmeal cookie. Well, let's take milk out of that. The child could take the cheeseburger on bun and applesauce, and that would be a reimbursable meal. The child could take the cheeseburger on bun, applesauce, and the oatmeal cookie, and that would still be a reimbursable meal. So milk is not necessarily required. It is a choice the child can choose.
Thank you, Sean.
So Bambi says, back to her question about the child where the parent does not want the child to participate in the summer food service program. And the question is, so not a meal price, but an a la carte. And yes, I would charge a la carte for the items the child selects. Because that is not a reimbursable meal. You're not claiming it for reimbursement. Looking on down, how will using the summer food service program funds now affect our ability to run the summer food service program in June? The summer food service program, the implementation of it now is being funded by USDA CARES funding. So I don't see that it will affect the ability to run the program this coming summer. And Kim says, where is the summer food service program on-site review form? And Kim, thanks for pointing that out. We also discovered that it wasn't posted on the website, and that will be posted as soon as possible.
I think Carol's asked the question, so after December 31st or up until December 31st or until the money is gone, then at that point you would be advised to revise your NSLP application again to change or update the dates for the meals. And I believe the answer to that would be yes, and we would communicate with you as quickly as we can or could when we realize that that switch needs to be made.
Carrie says that our summer food service program site application only has one school building on it. I'm assuming I need to add the other 3 school buildings in our district if we go with the summer food service program in September. And Terry, you are correct that how a school operated the summer food service program back in March through May or maybe even into the summer may be different than how they're operating it now that school is in session. So we will need to, our office will need to add the site into your profile so that you can complete site applications for, in your example, for the 3 other school buildings so that you have access to those site applications.
And that's why you filled out that access form and in it listed your sites. So as soon as we turn on those rights for your additional sites, we'll email you to let you know. And then you'll be able to click on add site application in your application list. And then you'll see that those are available to add. But we'll notify you when that's all ready for you. It's a question about the budget detail and the application, and I agree, there is a little glitch in that right now. Just do your best to make the costs equal to the reimbursement that the budget calculates for you. And then that should solve your issue there, Tammy.
Then Stan says, if we are updating our summer food service program application, do we not update the summary we created last spring? The answer is you will be adding your adult meal price. That is part of the budget. So if you are going to be selling meals to your teachers and other adults, then you will need to add that information into the budget page. And the budget page will update from the information submitted for number of meals, or number of meals times days of operation. So if you're adding number of days in August, September, it will update and it will cause you to have to look at your budget numbers again.
I'm not honestly sure that that's the case, Sean. I've helped a couple schools with theirs, and I don't know that it does update to reflect additional days. But we will help you through that, you know, when you're updating your application. Yep. That budget thing is just very touchy sometimes.
Stacy, what if we have decided to begin using the summer food service program as of October 1st? Do we need to wait until the new application is available for the next year? Yes. Katie, what is the release date for the new application for the summer food service program for school year 2021?
Yeah, we were originally planning to open that on the 21st, which would be next Monday, but we realized we don't want it to cause confusion because you've got the 1920 year and then the 2021 year both in there that could possibly need to be updated. But I also was made aware that maybe you want to do both of them at one time, kind of while you're in the mode, so to speak, of doing it. So we will notify you when it's open, and we are going to talk internally about what we think the best date to make that happen is. So we'll send an email to let you know when you can access it.
Katie, Donna asked, we serve lunches to our child development center. Are those lunches eligible for the summer food service program, or do we continue to serve and count them as we have in the past?
You know, that's a good question. It's a little bit of a complicated answer. I assume you got a contract agreement with the Child Development Center and they pay you for the meals you provide. I think one of the questions we'd have to have answered is whether or not that center participates in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So we could deal with those with a specialist who contacts you to help you through the process with your application. And I just want to say those tend to be handled on a case-by-case basis because it does depend on their participation in other child nutrition programs.
Judy wants to know when we will be allowed to work in our office again.
Good question.
And that is a very good question, and we don't have an answer for that right now. Right now, we continue to work remotely.
Jennifer's question is, so it's not necessary to go to the summer food program to be reimbursed. And so I guess my answer to that, and Sean, please chime in here, would be you can continue to operate and claim meals through the school meals program, also called the NSLP. And you would receive reimbursement that way. You just continue to follow the requirements of that program and opt to not transition to the summer food service program. I'm not sure if you think that's the answer to that question, Sean.
I think that is the answer. It is certainly each school's decision to decide to participate in the summer food service program. It is not a requirement.
Jamie asked a good question about a letter template on the NDE website for them to send to parents, or will we be posting one if one isn't available? We don't have one up there. Sean, I need your help on this one. I think it's a matter of communicating to families what the start date or possibly retroactive start date of your school's participation in the program is. And then if it's a retroactive start date, obviously you'd want to communicate to them that their school lunch accounts will be credited for meal charges, but not for a la carte charges, since the retroactive claim, and then make clear to them that this is an option for their students through December 31st, or when the funds are exhausted, if that happens before December 31st. Am I missing anything there?
No, that's what makes it so difficult to come up with a template, because it is dependent on each school's decision of when they are going to implement the program, and then informing your household that this program is available and just letting them know. So it is really an individual school district's decision of how they are implementing this program.
There's a question about the site application. Oh, did this site operate last year? For those of you who started the SFSP at the end of last spring, last spring was your first time operating, we're still in that same program year. So your answer to that question in your site application remains no, because you did not operate the program in a previous program year. And the pre-operational site visit date probably did get removed with the implementation of the calendar feature. You'll just have to re-enter it and make sure that that date is before the start date identified in your meal service sections, like a 43 or 45, and then down in the 50s for breakfast and lunch respectively. You can refer to the application guide for help with that, though. It should answer those kinds of questions.
Kathy, we do not want to confuse anyone. And this is what Kathy says in the chat. I am getting more confused the more I listen. If we do not get something entered correctly, will we be notified we are missing information, or will we be penalized? And that is not our intention, to confuse anyone. This is something that has never happened before, where schools have the option of participating in the summer food service program and serving students free of charge and receiving reimbursement at the summer food service rate. So it's all new territory for us also, and we are trying to navigate you through the process, letting you know that this is an option that is now available to you till the end of December. And yes, we will certainly help you through the process, and you will not be penalized if you're not understanding this, but we will be reaching out to you to assist you. Your application will not be able to be approved unless the information is correct in it. And so through the approval process, we will be reaching out to you also. Jean says, if we do not regularly offer summer meals to students, do we still need to complete an application for access to the CARES Act monies available? If you want to receive the summer food service rate of reimbursement, then you need to participate in the summer food service program and complete the access form so that we know of your school's intent to participate.
Great answers. I think maybe Lisa Moss asked a question about being able to use the summer food service program at non-school sites after everyone transitions back to the school meals program in January. The answer is to that is no. The waiver to the requirement that the summer food service program be used only during a school break like the summertime or during an unanticipated school closure expires on December 31st. So starting January 1st, all of the school students who would be receiving meals through the SFSP because of that waiver number 56 would transition back to receiving meals through the NSLP. If the school's in session, as far as we know right now, starting January 1st, they would utilize the school meals program for all students, regardless of whether they're in the classroom or learning virtually at home.
Stacy, follow up on my last question about the application. Can we assume that our application will be approved and still begin not charging on October 1st, even if we haven't been able to actually submit the application? Yes. Yes, Stacy. Once again, you can begin participation without a submitted or approved application.
So if you're new to the summer food service program, you won't have an on-site review. You'll just need to fill out that form that we realize is not available in the forms and resources page. So we will make sure to post it, and because it's such a need to have thing, I will include it in an email to everyone in our listserv as well.
Katie, I think we've come to the end of the questions. Now, do you have any other questions you'd like to enter into the chat box, or unmute yourself and you can certainly ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I received in today's mail our regular school lunch program reimbursement for August meals. I found out yesterday that we could go back the summer food service program to August 13th was our first day of school. Can I still revise our food service program back to August 13th and then submit another claim, and then they'll adjust it for what they've already paid?
Yeah, hi, Mr. Hickman. That is correct. You make a revision to your August NSLP claim and zero out all of the values, and then complete that revision, that claim revision, until you check the certification box and submit it for payment, even though you're not really submitting a payment per se. You're submitting a revision, and then you'll get a confirmation code, and that's how you'll know that you've fully completed the process of revising that claim back to zero. And then after your summer food application is approved in the C&P system, you can enter your August claim there, and the difference in value between your originally submitted school lunch claim for August and your summer food service claim for August will be calculated, and then basically, the adjustment will be made in the next summer food service claim that we process and pay to you after you've submitted it. It's kind of complicated. I hope I wasn't confusing there.
Yeah, that sounds complicated.
I don't mean for it to. I just say, I don't know. I'm out of words today, and I didn't do a good job of explaining that, but let me know if you didn't understand and I can clarify any parts of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hold on for just a minute or two if you have any other questions. If not, thank you for your patience and time today as we reviewed this information.
We still got lots of you here. We definitely want to say thank you for being flexible and patient while we wait for additional guidance that we know impacts all of you.
This is Donna, and I just want to say that I am proud to work with you folks, because Katie, Sean, Erica, everyone who is involved in this, you guys really do rock.
Thank you, Donna. You do too.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, I agree. Well, hearing and seeing no other questions in the chat box, we'll sign off for today. We'll make sure to send an email notifying you when this training and the slide deck is posted on the website. And in the meantime, I'll send to everyone the slides from today along with the SFSP site visit form, so you can have that for your records and complete it when you're able. Thank you so much.